Okay, guys, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there with you guys today, but I didn't want you to get behind. I know you're kind of ready to move on to your next project, which is landscapes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this recording here for you. I have recorded all the PowerPoint slides that I would normally go through with you, um, that you would take notes on. I've got them recorded here. You're going to watch this recording and you're going to take notes over some things that I highlight, some important points about landscapes, while you watch the video. So go ahead and get your sketchbook out and turn to a blank page. If you need to pause the video at this point to go and get your sketchbook, you may do so. When you resume the video, put today's date in the upper right hand corner. Today is the 30th of August. And then make sure across the top you write drawing landscapes and underline it. This particular project and lesson is still within the Unit 1 drawing. And here we go. And like I said, at any time you need to pause and write something down, feel free to do that. So 2 things I want you to know is that artists create landscapes with 2 different approaches. The first one is eye movement. A lot of artists will just look at a particular section of a landscape and their eyes are constantly moving around what they see and they just draw everything. This can cause you to get confused. It can make you claustrophobic. That's why most artists use viewfinders like you used with your with your still lifes, and that kind of helps you zoom in. That gives you something called a fixed point of view. This is a mathematical explanation of how we see. A photograph is a good example of a fixed point of view. When you look at something and you fix your viewfinder on it and you take that picture, you capture it, you fixed it. Make sure that you get both eye movement and fixed point of view down in your notes as the 2 fundamentally different approaches to seeing landscapes. Okay. Sighting, framing, and viewfinders. We touched on viewfinders last project with the still lifes. You guys used a viewfinder to kind of zoom in on what you wanted to draw. We talked slightly about sighting. That's where you take your pencil and you hold it out in front of you and you can measure the width and height of objects using your pencil and kind of bring that back down to your paper to know how tall or wide it should be drawn on your paper. You really only use sighting and viewfinders whenever you are drawing from life. You won't be drawing from life for your landscape drawing, so this is kind of something that you'll use later when we are drawing from life again. You will frame in this particular project. Whenever you frame, you draw a frame on your drawing paper that kind of represents the same proportion as whatever picture you choose to print out and use for your landscape drawing. And then you will draw inside that rectangle on your paper. It kind of leaves a white border around the edge of your drawing paper. There's no need to write anything down from this particular slide. I just wanted to give you that information. Now let's talk a little bit about how to organize your space in your composition with grounds. There are 3 grounds that we use to create a fixed point of view composition. The 3 grounds are the foreground, middle ground, and the background. So these are the 3 grounds. You want to make sure that you put those in your notes. The foreground is the area in the drawing that seems to be closest to you, and it is typically at the bottom of your paper. Make sure that you get all of that in your notes. The middle ground is the name for the area in the middle distance or between the foreground and the background. It's typically in the middle of your paper. Make sure that you get all of that in your notes. And then the background is the area that seems to be farthest from the viewer, and it's typically at the top of your paper. So make sure all of those things are in your notes that I've highlighted there. Now, in most drawings, the artist renders the foreground in sharp detail with the middle ground and background less detailed. They do this because it creates the illusion of space, because objects that are closer to you are usually brighter in color and more detailed in value changes and texture. So I want you to know that the foreground is sharp detail and the middle ground and the background is less detailed. Okay? Now let's talk about the elements of a landscape. There are many elements to a landscape, which is why they can be difficult to create. They're very detailed. But the three main elements of any landscape that you need to focus on when you're picking out your picture and you're recreating it is the sky, plants, and water. The sky is often the background for a landscape drawing. It can be a major or a minor part of the composition. Okay, so make sure that you know that the three main elements of any landscape are sky, plants, and water. And then for sky, I want you to put the sky is often the background for the landscape drawing. It's also the source of light for landscapes, so I want you to know that as well. It's what's going to help you create your highlights on the different objects in your landscape. It's important that you know where your source of light is. Sunlight and moonlight are typically what you use to create a variety of lighting effects, shadows, and moods whenever we're talking about landscapes. Now, plants in a landscape are those that grow well in the type of weather and soil of that place. You need to know that. They have different habits of growth, textures, and shapes, which the artist must observe carefully. So in Arkansas, we typically have what we call deciduous trees, which would be your hardwood trees like oaks and gum. We also have a lot of pine trees, a lot of coniferous trees. Those are the types of things that you'd want to pay attention to. Different areas of the world have different types of vegetation. And that's where you're going to get most of your pattern and your texture for your artwork from whenever you're talking about landscapes. Water in the landscape forms patterns such as waves, ripples, and reflections. So if you're having to draw water in your landscape, make sure you pay attention to that. You need to get values in there with your shadows and your highlights and your mid-tone grays that create those waves, ripples, and reflections. Make sure you have all the highlighted information in your notes. Aerial perspective. Aerial perspective occurs whenever moisture, dust, or a combination of these things is between us and the objects we see. Those that are farthest from us lose their details and their colors become muted. An example of this is like if you're in the car and you're driving and you look really far ahead of you in the distance, the trees that are further away on the sides of the roads, they look really gray and muted, and the trees that are right beside you are real detailed and colored. That's aerial perspective. All that dust and moisture that's between your car and all those trees that are really far away is causing you to see the trees in the distance in a different way, a different color, different texture and detail. Make sure that you get aerial perspective and the definition. You don't have to do this part. Sorry, you guys. Let me take that off of there. Yeah. Oh well, just know that you don't have to put that part on there. Okay, now let's talk about eye levels. When creating a drawing, we have three different eye levels. We have what is known as eye level, that's at eye level. At eye level is typically what you see when you are standing up or sitting in a chair. So that's just you looking out straight across from you and seeing what you see without having to raise your head or bend over or do anything weird. You wouldn't see the tops of tall buildings or trees if you're just looking straight in front of you, because that would require you to look up. Now below eye level, which we sometimes call ant's view, is whenever you are down on the ground and you're seeing things very low. Think about what an ant would see if an ant was standing on the ground and looking out across. Above eye level can mean drawing a view from an upper story window, standing on a cliff, or even looking out of the window of an airplane. That means you're looking down on something. Make sure you get all the highlighted areas in your notes. Some of the most famous landscape artists are a group of mid-19th century American artists who were members of something called the Hudson River School. The Hudson River School was a group of people who were influenced by Romanticism. Their paintings depict the Hudson River Valley and the surrounding area, as well as the Catskill Mountains, the Adirondack Mountains, and the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Real quickly, I'm just going to kind of show you some of their work on Google. So as you can see here, just from the search results, they're very romanticized. They look kind of dreamy. They have a warm glow to them, but at the same time, they are very realistic. Lots of details. Here's an up-close example here. My internet's kind of slow at home, so it's having a hard time focusing. Many of these artworks are at Crystal Bridges in Bentonville at the American Art Museum there, and they're massive. They take up a lot of space on a wall. They're probably bigger than our smartboard. These are just a few examples of the type of landscape picture you would need to choose for your drawing for this particular project. Notice that none of these artworks really have people in them. If there are people in them, they're very, very minute. They're not hardly a part of the picture at all. Like right here, if you click on this particular example, the people take up a very small portion of the artwork, and the landscapes, the vegetation, the sky, the water takes up most of what you see. That's what a landscape is. It's primarily vegetation. No man-made objects, no people. You need to go to open a browser like Google or Safari, and you need to type in landscape photography and click on images. And go through the results and find a picture of a landscape that you would like to recreate using charcoal. Keep in mind that Vine charcoal is not as user-friendly whenever you're trying to get a lot of detail in there. So you want to pick something that's not going to be extremely detailed. For example, something like this would probably require a lot of detail. All the different textures in the rocks, the mountains. You might want to choose things that are simpler. But at the same time, I don't want you to choose something that's way too easy like that. You can do something that's a little bit harder, more difficult than that. Once you have picked the picture that you want to use, I would like for you to download it to your computer, and then from your desktop, I want you to upload that JPEG image to the Google Classroom link that has been created for you on Google Classroom that says landscape photograph. You're going to upload this JPEG file to that particular link. Do not upload a picture on a Google Doc. I do not want a Google Doc. I just want the actual JPEG file uploaded to that assignment link on Google Classroom. Then I want you to open your sketchbook up, draw yourself a frame, look at your picture. If you chose this picture, for example, it's going to be rectangle. So you would draw a rectangular box on your sketchbook that takes up most of the page, but still leaves a white border around the edge. And you would begin to contour draw everything you see in this picture inside the box on your sketchbook page. However, if you choose a picture like this, it's more square. So you would draw that particular box in your sketchbook more square than rectangle, and then you would begin to contour draw what you see in the image. For today, all I want you to do is do a quick contour drawing sketch of your landscape picture that you choose. We're not going to get into the charcoal today. I just want you to have a good hand-eye coordination, a good practice sketch, so that you can kind of see what the layout of your landscape is and where things need to go. When I return to school tomorrow, we'll take a look at your sketches, and then I'll give you your bigger paper and we'll begin working it out with charcoal. If you finish your sketch before the end of class, you are free to work on the back cover of your sketchbook, because that's going to be due when we return to school on Tuesday. So you can go ahead and get a head start on that if you would like. The substitute teacher has white paper on my desk that she can give to you that you can use to trace and cut out and create your design on. I hope this works well for you. I hope I've given you enough directions. You can always send me a message on Remind if you log into your Remind account on Google Drive. On Google Chrome, and you shoot me a message. I'll be able to answer. You can also shoot me an email if you want to email me from your student email account, and I'll try to stay on top of those today and get back to you if I can. I hope you have a good day, and I will see you guys on Friday.